You're listening to Simple Roots Radio, episode number 167, and today is another episode of Monday Motivation, and I'm sharing my top 3 food hacks.
Welcome to Simple Roots Radio with Alexa Sherm. Alexa believes that simplicity in life is the key to achieving true and lasting health. And now your host, Alexa Sherm.
Welcome back to another episode of Simple Roots Radio. Like always, my name's Alexa, and this is the place to get healthy, live happy, and find more joy. Today is another episode of Monday Motivation, the place to give you some encouragement, to give you the courage to continue on in this health journey, because what I believe is it's not a destination, but it's a lifelong journey of growth, and one that can be so fun, especially if we do it well. Now, today on the podcast, I'm going to be sharing my top 3 food hacks. These are just simple, everyday things that I do so that my meal plan and my food doesn't control and consume my life. Now, I know that this is an easy mindset to get yourself into, especially with the World Wide Web, right? Like Pinterest and bloggers and even us at the Nourish Planner are releasing a new meal plan every single week. So I wanted to share my thoughts on how I go about meal planning and really just my top 3 food hacks to make sure that I'm eating well without being overwhelmed. But before we get there, I just want to remind you that you can find all the information on today's show, as well as the resources that I link up over in the show notes at simplerootswellness.com/167. Also over there, I'm sharing my favorite go-to summer recipes that I use and that I'm talking about here. So if you want my little cycle of meal rotations, head on over to the show notes where I'll be giving away that for free. So make sure you head to the show notes, simplerootswellness.com/167 to get my summer meal rotation. But to get to the show, because these are 10 minutes or less, I have those 3 top food hacks. Now I know that eating healthy is a really hard thing for some people. And it sounds so simple, but really when it goes against what you've been doing, it is a difficult thing. And then you combine that with all of these food ideas and all these complexities that have to do with healthy eating, and it can become a really overwhelming thing so quickly. So what I want to encourage you is to stop thinking about it so much. I think for most of us, especially people who are on this journey or just starting this journey, meal planning and healthy eating is something that is so easy to overthink. But really, if we just live aware of our body and we just stay in tuned and create the space that we need in order to live well, healthy eating isn't as difficult as we make it out to be in our head. Yes, it involves discipline, 100%. But if we start to focus less on the food itself and more on how the food is making us feel, then we can start to associate with our bodies what is good and what is bad. Because you're going to start to feel either good after you eat it or bad after you eat it. And yes, we're all going to make mistakes when it comes to healthy eating. And I don't even like to call them mistakes or splurges. We're all at some point going to eat something that maybe isn't the most healthiest of foods. But that doesn't mean it has to be unhealthy either. It's consistency, right? I look at healthy eating not so much on meal to meal, but what you're doing over the course of time and how you're feeding your body. Are you feeding your body to fuel it, or are you just feeding your body to get calories, to pacify needs or desires or hurts or pains, right? So there are different ways that we can go about eating. And I think eating done in the right mindset consistently over time looks so much different than the philosophy of what food has on us today, that every meal matters and that we need to count every single thing. Sure, you can see results doing that, right? I'm not going to argue that the ketogenic diet doesn't see massive results. But realistically speaking, over the long haul, we have to understand how is that treating your body? And is it going well, even outside of weight loss? How do you feel doing that? And is it something that can be sustained? Okay, so 3 tips, my 3 food hacks that I use to help make meal planning not overwhelming and to get myself to eat healthy meals. One is that I rotate through just a couple of different meals every single week. So what I mean by that, instead of trying to plan Monday through Sunday, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, what I do is that I just have 2 breakfast options, maybe 1 or 2 lunch options. Honestly, my lunch is just leftovers. And then I plan out 3 or 4 dinner options. So what that means for me is like this week, for example, my breakfast rotation is egg and ham biscuits or a yogurt parfait. That's it. And I'll just go back and forth based on how I wake up and feel. And I do that because I know that I have those foods on hand to eat that week. And it's not a big, massive decision. It's like one or the other. I think sometimes when we give ourselves so many decisions and we go on Pinterest looking for all the recipes, that it can be overwhelming to scan through the millions of healthy recipes that there are and pick something that's going to work for you and then actually cook and prep it every single day. So I pick 2 things for breakfast, and it's going to change week to week based on just how I'm feeling. So last week I did some smoothie bowls and I did quick hashes. This week we made some biscuits. So I have ham and egg biscuits, maybe some spinach on that. Of course, all these things I can change out. So I'm going to have biscuits and eggs, or I'm going to have yogurt parfaits. And inside the yogurt parfait, one day I might use strawberries and blueberries. The next day I might have mangoes and cherries. Like, it's going to look differently every single day. So that's what I do. Just keep it simple. 2 things for breakfast. Honestly, for lunch, I have the same basics that I keep on hand, but then I just add in the leftovers that we have. So my 2 basics are I always have a salad mix and a salad dressing, and I always have some kind of starch, whether it's rice or sweet potatoes. And then I feel like I add in the protein that's left over from our dinners that I can use to fill that in. And so again, it's just something I don't have to think about. That's just what I eat. And then I'll just plan 2 or 3 nights of dinners. So it's not big consuming things, but just thinking small, seasonal, simple things that you can do and just rotate it. Then the next week you can kind of change that up. Over in the show notes, like I said, I'm going to give you my breakfast and lunch rotation so you can see the things that I'm constantly pulling from. And while little ingredients might change, overall, the scope of what that meal looks like is the same thing almost every single day. So it's pretty simple as that. Number 2 is just pick one meal to focus on in any given day. Instead of just being consumed by breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which can take up your entire day, just pick one meal and focus on that and let the rest happen. And I know that sounds scary and overwhelming, but the more you get into just one meal, then you can go back and fix the next meal. I feel when we put all of our emphasis into this overwhelming goal, we have no life to live and we will always get burnout and we will always end up frustrated. So instead of doing that, pick one meal. For me, it's breakfast. I know that breakfast changes the course of my entire day. So for me, I always try to have a healthy breakfast and I'm going to sit down and eat it. Lunch might be chaos. It might be something completely unhealthy. I'm just going to let it be because overall, if I eat a healthy breakfast, I know that more than likely I'm going to make healthy choices, even in the midst of chaos. And then at supper, I always generally have an idea of what I'm going to make. I never really just cook my full meals on the weekend. So for me, I focus on one thing, and that is my breakfast. And I know that if I eat well and I sit down and enjoy it and I have enough to eat, that will change the course of my day. So pick one thing, just one, and focus on that. And once you get that going really well, then maybe you can add some more attention to a different meal that you want to focus on. But for me, I usually just pick one thing and I just let the rest kind of happen based on my very fine plans or just on the decision that needs to be made in the time. And my last food hack that I want to give you is have a pick-me-up meal. And what I mean by a pick-me-up meal is that there's always going to be a time and a place that you eat something or you're in a position where it's not a healthy meal and it leaves you feeling kind of less than, it leaves you feeling bloated or gassy or just not well. I mean, I think we've all been there from time to time. Like, it's gotten you off track. And I think sometimes we become a people that when we get off track, we automatically insert failure, right? Like, we failed and then it's harder for ourselves to get back on track. So rather than letting myself get in this mindset of, oh, I failed, so I might as well just wait until next Monday and I'm just going to eat everything that I want to eat now, instead I have a pick-me-up meal. So if my lunch is chaotic and I get myself in a position where I don't make healthy choices or there's not a lot of healthy choices, then I have a pick-me-up meal. And usually that pick-me-up meal has to do with something really healthy that I really enjoy. Whether it's a smoothie that goes along, that's a snack that I have right away afterwards or a couple of hours after that meal, or whether it's a really healthy breakfast the next day. Like I have a smoothie recipe that I love and I know it gets me right back on track because it makes me feel well and it makes me feel good and I enjoy it. And that helps set the trajectory of the rest of the decisions that I'm going to make. So have a pick-me-up meal, establish what that is, and just stick with it. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be really simple, but I use that to get myself back on track. So those are my 3 food hacks that I think are really valuable to me, and I hope that they are helpful for you. Again, one is to rotate through the same meals and change them seasonally, but don't make this big grand, like every single week your meals have to be completely different. Then number 2 is focus just on one thing at a time. And number 3 is have a pick-me-up meal. Those are my top 3 food hacks. They really have changed the course of my meals and ultimately help take some decision off this and take away the complexity, making this something that I actually enjoy and that's not a complex process. Because what I really believe is that food is not supposed to be as complex as we make it. We give it way too much power it was never intended to have and it shouldn't have in your life. So start small and really just stop thinking so much about food and it might change the way that you do things. Maybe I should rephrase that and say, stop thinking so much about food and instead start thinking about how you feel when you eat that food. And do what's easy and the right mindset. The more you stress about healthy eating, the more unhealthy this whole process gets. So trying to eliminate the stress, to simplify the process, and really just stop thinking and focusing so much on it and start thinking and focusing more on external things. Focusing your power away from food and more into life and the purpose that you live. And I think that can change everything. So anyways, I hope those tips were helpful. I hope you can start to implement them into your own life. Just pick one thing. This week on the podcast, I'm going to talk more about that and more about what I'm learning in my own health journey. And it's going to be exciting. I mean, I'm probably going to go on 50 million rants. So enter at your own risk, but I'm excited to share some of the stuff that I've been learning and just give you an update on my health journey. In the meantime, pick one thing and do that one thing and stop focusing so much on everything else. And I hope that leaves you feeling refreshed and helps get rid of these bitter feelings that we all carry around about food and meal planning and just step into something that works for you. So that's your encouragement today. Pick one thing, take these food hacks, implement them into your life. I hope it helps. And don't forget to go over to the show notes at simperitzwellness.com/167 to get my food rotation for summer. Check that out. You don't have to do exactly what I do, but it gives you an idea of what my life looks like as it relates to food. So head on over there, check that out. In the meantime, don't forget to come back on Wednesday where I'm sharing my healing journey and what I think health means. See you then.